That looks amazing, doesn't it? Beautiful crease again, running from our inside bank right the way across, certainly past the middle. The best thing you can do is basically just feed a swim and prepare it, and then go and have a bit of fun on the float somewhere. I'm not looking at any spots. I don't generally fish spots when I come to the River Wye. I don't really know the river that well. I don't spend an awful lot of time here, unfortunately, because it's so far away. And so when I arrive, I've got such a short space of time that sort of finding a spot and bait dropping gear and all that stuff seems to be, I don't know, more for rivers that you've got a lot of experience on. And I've never ever seen Wyastone Leys before in my life. Like, I've got this afternoon and I've got tomorrow, so I'm learning on the spot. So what I am doing is I'm just sprinkling a few pellets in an area where I assume that if there are fish in this area, which I'm assuming there are, that they're going to be sat. They're definitely not going to be sat on the inside here because there's no pace. Yes, there's a decent bit of depth, but there's no pace. And at this time of year, they definitely want to be in the sort of bubbly water. And that crease from about halfway to 2/3 of the way across, just, that's where I'd be. That's where I'd be. So I'm just scattering a few pellets, probably 20 to start off with, 25. I don't really want them to be fed right up in and around that area, just to get them searching, just to get them moving. And if they can nick one or two through the day, because I don't think they're going to be feeding very heavily in this sun. When we had quite a lot of rain last night, and actually when I turned up, it was overcast, chucking it down 13 degrees, but it's got to be pushing 20 degrees now in the last hour, so it's proper summer conditions now. And I just think through the middle of the day, they're just not going to be that active and not going to be feeding that much. So I'm not assuming that they're going to come in and wipe all these pellets out right from the start. But again, like I said, a couple of hours time, I'll wander up with another maybe 20 pellets and just ping them in the same area. It's what I love booking the River Wye for, you know. Generally when you go through Angling Dreams, you get the stretch to yourself, so you can sort of hatch a little plan in your mind, and you know you can prepare a swim, walk away, and no one's going to be sat here in the evening reaping your rewards other than you. So it's sort of like a little, it's an angler's playground. It's great. And I did look briefly on the Wyastone Foundation passport, because you can book this through the Wyastone Foundation as well as through Adam himself at Angling Dreams. And where it's been quite low and very hot, you know, last week was the hottest couple of days of the year, well into the 30s. The people that have been fishing it haven't been doing very well. But in them conditions, if you miss the first hour and a half and you miss the last hour and a half, you're sitting there in office hours and you are literally, you're gonna struggle. So with that in mind, and assuming the river's probably fishing similar right now, even though there is a tiny bit of water on, and we did have the last couple of days been significantly cooler, which is definitely in our favour, I'm going to assume it's still fishing a little bit tough, and I'm just going to fish for bites. And I think, as I've probably said several times before, this is the best way of doing it. Setting this swim up for the last couple of hours and leaving them be, just to mooch around and pick the odd bait off and get comfortable and confident. Plus, it gives you something to really look forward to. You know, if you come and sit in the dolly hole, not that I know this is a dolly hole, but if this looks like the best option for a static bait, certainly later on this evening, if you come and sit here right from the start at the wrong time of day and you don't catch for a couple of hours, at the right time of day, in my experience, you get a little bit disheartened and you don't fish it as confidently. And that's the worst thing you can do. All right, last couple of pellets. I mean, tell me they ain't going to be on that crease. Just can't see it. They've got to be. I say this wind is a bit of a pig. Not a breeze, it's a wind. If it's just gusting, if it's blustery, I don't mind that. If it's constant, it's going to scupper the plans, but as long as I can feed right, and as long as I can I don't mind standing here and actually just sort of wasting time staring at the beautiful river. If the wind's blowing for 2 or 3 minutes and I can't fish, that's fine, I'll just feed. I've got quite a large hook on. I've got a size 12 and I'm thinking I'm going to give them 5 maggots, just see what the score is. I don't want to be catching minnows, I don't want to be catching anything small. Really, if that float goes under, I want there to be a chance of it to be, well, I'd love a barbel. I mean, I can count on one hand, not that I do it all that often if I'm honest, but I can probably count on one hand the amount of barbel that I've actually caught on the float. Not many at all. Like I said, I've never really spent much time doing it. Not because I don't go to rivers where you can't do it, but mainly because if I'm float fishing, I actually prefer catching chub. What's that? Big lump of weed. There you go. It's a good start, isn't it? Right, note to self, don't lower your rig in front of you. Right. Please, wind, don't be a pain. I might have to step it up to a 6 grammer. I started off with 4, but as soon as I looked at the river, I realised that 4 grams really isn't that big on here. It's not going anywhere fast, need to go a little bit further out. The wind upstream is a little bit stronger than the flow downstream. It's making the casting. I might have to give it an overhead thump actually. Put a heavier float on. It's a great thing about these quick change olivettes. So just pop that out like that. Hopefully stick that in my mouth and not drop it. I should have got everything out first, if I'm honest. Stick the old 4 grammer away. Get the 6 grammer out. 3 float rubbers, nice and simple. Bish bosh bang. Stick my 6 grammer on. No need to wander back to the bank. Do all of that and feed at the same time. Yes, you have to be a bit of a multitasker, but my missus always tells me I can't, so how's this? How's this, Lee? That wind buggers off and just like it's a nice breeze like this, then we're float fishing. We are fishing. I actually can't see it. Oh, we're in. We're in. I couldn't see it because it was under. It went under. That's out of the blue. That is. That's right out of the blue. I was just saying to Ty about the wind and the fact that when it gets into that white water, I just can't see the float. And I went, I can't see it. Look, I can't see it. And I thought, that's gone under, that's why. Well, I can tell you right now, all the frustrations of the last 20 minutes of the wind, getting that bite and hooking a fish has really gained my confidence that all I've got to do is persevere. All I've got to do is persevere. And there's no 2 ways about it. If I'd have been sat on the feeder, I wouldn't have caught this fish. It's plodding though, I'll tell you that much. Fantastic bite in this float. Under the rod tip on the float. What is it? That ran in circles. It is a baby barbel. It's a tiny little barbel, would you believe it? I'll tell you what, I ain't caught many doubles on the Wye, but I've caught more doubles than I've caught this size. This is quite rare for, well, I'm thinking for most people, it's a real little one. You normally don't see them like this. That is absolutely beautiful. Behave yourself, please. Look at that. Get that float out. Look at that. What an absolute treat. Oh, got a discorder in here somewhere. There we go, hold on. I think you've either got to be lucky. What a soppy sod. You've either got to be lucky on a day like today, or you've just got to persevere. Got a bit up. Well, I didn't want to be here because I was convinced that we'd have to wait until dusk. But with 30-mile-an-hour winds in our face, downstream, you'd think we was in a completely different location. Same stretch. Oh, suffice to say we hooked the barbel. Same stretch, just 500 yards upstream, but we're just on the, almost in the lee of the wind, and it's just mad. It's completely different. It's a shame I actually can't float fish here. I just don't think I'll be able to get the maggots far enough out. I am contemplating having to go tomorrow on the pellet. But this was second chuck. My first chuck, I got weeded out. This is the second chuck on the feeder, and just coming down, what, 3 hours ago? Definitely paid off, because we haven't been in this swim more than 20 minutes. First, I was gonna say it's the first white barbel I've had on for God knows how long, but it's not, is it? Because I caught a tiny little diddly one on the float. Oh, it's wrapped around, wrapped right round. Oh, there's weed everywhere, and she's in. That, my friends, is the right result. I knew it was going to be a struggle, but just have a game plan and don't rush it. Don't rush it. What a beautiful place this is. It was hell on earth down there, standing in the river. I couldn't think of anywhere better to stand in the river and float fish than the River Wye. I love it. You ain't going to catch any monsters here. You might do, but the likelihood is you ain't. But down there, it went from a summer's day wading out to a winter's day, like just me and the cameraman were really struggling. And that's it. Come back up here after 3 hours of letting them grub over that pellet. I'm waffling because I'm happy, because I'm really happy. That'd have been really good on the float, that one though. Oh dear, that would have gone. Well, there we go. I feel like we've probably got a little bit fortunate with the rain last night. The river, I think, is coming up ever so slightly, which in these summer conditions are absolutely perfect. There's a little bit of weed coming down, but I've never seen this stretch before. I came down here a few hours earlier, pinged a few pellets out, you saw that. Went and got my backside handed to me on the float fishing because the wind is so bad. So we're here probably 2 hours earlier than I wanted to be. And second chuck, a beautiful white barbel. And I think I've just heard a fish roll. So maybe there's another bite. We'll see. Anyway, absolutely banging. Look at that. Well worth the 260 odd mile. Oh, let's get you back. Looks big, man, doesn't it? Don't you think? Healthy, very healthy, just how I like to see them go back. Oh, unlike my knees. My knees are very old. Well, that's it for the first afternoon. Unfortunately, such a busy time of year for me. I don't get an awful lot of time to actually go fishing, so it might seem a little bit weird that you drive like 160, 170 miles down here to do an afternoon and what is pretty much going to be a morning session tomorrow, but it's such a beautiful place to come. I love it at this time of year, and even though it wasn't spectacular fishing, and years ago you could come down here in an afternoon and expect 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe even 9 or 10 barbel, but it's not that type of river anymore. Does a few less fish, but there's a better chance of a few better fish. It's just the evolution of rivers, up and down like yo-yos. But I still feel like we've done all right. We nicked a barbel, albeit only small, on the float, in very poor conditions, and I'm hoping the weather report doesn't actually look that good for tomorrow either when it comes to the wind, but I have still left the float rod set up by the van, so I'm going to have another go tomorrow. And we nicked a barbel a little bit earlier than I expected as well, on the feeder, so going to go back to the van now. One beautiful thing about this stretch is that there's a meadow just behind the cattle drink where we was float fishing earlier on, and you can put your bivvy up there. So I'm going to get my bed chair out, I'm going to get my bivvy set up, I'm going to boil myself 6 eggs, food of champions. I'm going to get some shut-eye because we are losing light for the filming, and I'm going to get up tomorrow morning. I've just fed some pellets into here. I've fed some pellets where we had the barbel earlier on, and I'm hopefully, if the wind doesn't pick up too soon tomorrow, going to get a couple hours more on the float before I have to leave about midday. But that's it. We've had, what? We've had 5 good hours at it today. And we'll probably get the same amount of time tomorrow. And if you put a gun to my head and ask me if it's worth doing a 300-mile round trip for 10 hours good fishing on a stunning river like this, I'd say yes. But right now I need some food and I need a little bit of shut-eye because I'm tired. Well, good morning. It is first knockings in this swim. This is the swim that I had the barbel in yesterday, and I thought it was a perfect time before I make my first cast this morning. I put some bait in last night, so I'm hoping that there's going to be a quick bite. To talk you through what I'm using down here, I've got the Trilogy rods, 12 foot, and I've got the 1 3/4 pound tip in there. I absolutely love these rods. I just put the entire sheath in the back of the van, and whatever tip I need, whether it be the 1.5 pound quiver tip, the 1 3/4 pound, which I've got now, or the 2 1/4 pound, I just literally stick on the end of the butt section. It's really well balanced. I think they look incredible as well. I've matched that with a 6000 Zelos with 10-pound barbel line, and it's really simple. I'm come down to these brand new safety clips, the quick change ones. Got a nice little tail rubber there and a really lovely little, probably, I don't know, slightly over an inch anti-tangle rig sleeve. I've got a 2-ounce river feeder, and I've got probably 2.5, maybe 3 feet, like that. I don't really measure it, I just go like that, of 10-pound fluorocarbon hook link, and then I've got a size 10 specimen and a tiny little 8 by 10 mil dumbbell. That is it. Nice and simple. It caught some fish yesterday after pre-baiting, and when I left here last night I pre-baited, so hopefully there's going to be a quick bite. Fingers crossed. All right, let's go. Let's get this in the drink. The sun's just lifting above the hills. I mean, it's absolutely stunning. The birds are up and down, the kingfishers, the robins. It's a typical Wye morning where you just think to yourself, I'm blessed not to be at work. But the fish have other ideas, unfortunately. So, I've only got another 3 or 4 hours before I have to hit the road back to Essex and get myself back into work. So, I think what we're going to do, I'm going to have one more chuck here, and whilst this wind's down, because there's a tree, yesterday when we got into this swim, there was a tree just down there, and whilst the wind was blowing, it was folded in 90 degrees. It's not moving at the moment, but whilst the wind's down, I'm going to take that opportunity before we have to hit the road to try and get back into that cattle drink and see if there were more fish there yesterday. I was convinced there were fish there to be caught, but the wind scuppered my presentation. But before that, I would dearly love a bite. So what more I can do at the moment, I don't know, because like I said, I fed it last night. We gave it a good, well, whilst I was asleep, if there's fish in the area, I'm convinced they've wiped out the bait and had a bit of a chomp. So yeah, I guess it's just one of those summer trips to the Wye when the feed-in spells are super small and you've just got to be there at the right time. And at some point, they could easily just be feeding at night. Believe that 15 minutes ago we stood there on that beach and decided that the wind weren't bad, the sun was out, it looked perfect in this swim for a bit of float fishing. There you go. There you go. I don't know what it is, and I don't think it's massive, but it ain't weed because it's banging its head. And I'm hoping it ain't that tiny little barbel that we caught yesterday. Albeit I'd like to show you a picture of him because he jumped off, but that was definitely a bite. And today, the wind isn't ideal, but it's definitely better. And that's why we stood there and we was like, it's got to have a go. We've just got to have a go before we go home. Couldn't get bites on the feeder. Like, we had a quick bite yesterday. Couldn't get them this morning. And as soon as I didn't get a bite on the feeder, first knockings this morning, I was really dubious that was going to get any through the middle of the day. It's another tiny little barbel. I think it's the same fish. I think it's the same fish. There's only one fish in this swim and I'm that good that I can catch it every time I come. Oh man. What was I saying about these fish actually quite rare? Turns out I've never caught many of them because they all live in this swim and this is the first time I've fished it. Come here, you little wiry bugger. Oh, it's soaked me maggots as well. Nailed in the top lip. There you go. I know he's going to jump out. He's going to jump. Don't. Just relax. Look at that. The conditions are really hard on the river at the moment. The water's low, it's pretty clear. The fish do not seem to be playing ball on the feeder. And the weather is atrocious for float fishing because we've got this 20 to 30 mile an hour wind blowing in our face, but we are persevering, and by some miracle, oh, I've got a tip wrap, by some miracle I managed a little barbel on the float yesterday before we went back and nicked that lovely fish on the feeder up at the top of the stretch yesterday afternoon. This morning, I expected a bite in every single swim that I put a feeder in. I never had a touch, never had a sign, which was a bit demoralising if I'm honest. But even though the wind's not so great, we've decided to have a go, persevered, and I don't know whether it's the same fish or not, but it is exactly the same size as the one we had yesterday. And literally a couple of minutes ago, I turned around and said, oh, this is miserable because I don't feel like I'm fishing a lot of the runs. but it only takes the float to dip and for the tip to nod once for all that to change, and it's just done it. So Ty, the cameraman, he's standing there with his hand in his waders, shaking his head because he's freezing cold in this wind. But sorry, buddy, we've got at least another 45 minutes, because if there's one, well, I said that yesterday, I think, didn't I? Where there's one, there's more. Might have picked up a bit of weed there. No, that's a fish. That's proper fish. That's proper fish. That is a proper fish. Like, the bad thing is it's going upstream towards the rapids, but the good thing is there's rapids there, so I can't see how it's going to go any further. You ain't even going to believe it. No, it's tiny. It's tiny. Oh, it's double the size of the last one, but I thought it was going to be like 4 pounds. The ain't, it's like 2 pounds. An absolute stunning, beautiful little wide banger on the float. There you go, beautiful. Straight back down to the bottom. Carry on to do fishing. This is brilliant. Honestly, I'm loving it. This is why fishing is the best thing for you, because it will just turn your life around in a couple of minutes. Like, I even missed breakfast for this morning's feeding spell, and it just never happened. I was like, oh no. You just don't know. You just don't know. I mean, we ain't caught nothing massive. One of the fish yesterday on the feeder was half decent, if I'm honest. And this ain't. It's got to be a nursery or something, because I've never caught. I don't mean this in like a blasé way, like I'll catch loads of massive fish, but I've never caught this amount of small barbel in a on the bounce, you know. Tell you what, they're in incredible condition. Pound for pound, they definitely fight the hardest barbel. On the small rivers, when I'm fishing for the real big ones, you can't give them any slack. You can't give them an inch, because they're in somewhere. On the Trent, they definitely give up a little bit quicker than this, but here, these things. Oh, come here, sweetheart. Look at him. Absolute bruiser. Such an hard fighting little fish. Pound for pound, they're mega. Thank you, sweetheart. Well, oh, he went through my legs. That's a bite, that's a bite. I knew there was more fish there. I knew there was more fish there to be caught. I just couldn't present a bait to them. It's a grayling. It's a grayling. What is it? It's a grayling, man. Whoa. How's your luck? How's that? What an amazing looking creature. It's not a big grayling, and it's behaving in my hand just like all them little barbel did, but well, she's gone. I don't mind. Not the type of year, not the time of year that you really want to be catching them, but how's that? That's a right little result. Bugger me, I would never have thought you'd catch a grayling this far downstream, like. Oh, there's a rock. Well folks, I think the wind has scuppered the float fishing and the last, well, I've got 5 minutes. I need to leave by 12 o'clock and it's 5 to 12. Probably the last hour I was scratching, if I'm honest, because with the upstream wind, whatever it is, 30 odd mile an hour, it's creating white caps and I can barely see the float. It's very difficult to keep the float on the right line. It hasn't been easy. We haven't had an awful lot of time here, but there's not many places in the country you can come with a float rod and a feeder rod and spend 10 hours fishing and catch 5 barbel, albeit we've only had 1 proper barbel, but on the float, those smaller ones are super, super fun. Stand in the middle of a river in the most spectacular scenery and just have the time of your life. Why I haven't done this for the last few years, I don't know, but I need to have a word with myself and have a word with the missus because she wants to come on holiday up here and make it like it was a few years ago, an annual pilgrimage, because quite frankly, there's nowhere else like it. It just isn't.